Well, hello team. I just wanted to offer this video as a bit of a professional learning opportunity with a focus on enhancing reflective practice among our students in GIP program, but maybe also thinking about how we might model that skill ourselves. So first, I'm going to set some context and use a systems approach to introduce why enhancing self-reflective practice is so important from a variety of levels, right? And this is actually really good timing, given that we are going to be moving into our first program review later this year. So timing couldn't be better. The second is I'm hoping that we'll be able to explore different ways that you might think about including reflective practice within your courses. And I'm going to be able to share a pilot, share some of my lived experience with you for my course with Health 6045, where I'm introducing this proof of concept. And by us meeting together like this, so hopefully we're watching this video with also an eye to meet kind of synchronously and discuss things through a little bit further. We're actually, through this little community of practice, we're modeling this very important skill. So let's get started. So I really like this description that's offered by Hensley et al. And they actually looked at how reflective journal writing could be used as a tool towards change. And so really, by looking at that definition, for all intents and purposes, we can say that reflection is an important part of the way forward towards improvement. So in my review of the literature, many of the scholars actually refer to Mesereau's transformative learning theory, where one goes through several kind of layers of reflection, comparing past information with new information and experiences to kind of bring yourself to this new level of learning. And what's really neat too in the literature is that the reflection is associated with when one has that skill of reflection, it's associated with a lot of positive outcomes, right? That these students, when I was looking at it from a student perspective, that they had some good study habits, that they receive higher grades, they attain better learning outcomes, and just had this more positive learning disposition. They also tended to be thought of as lifelong learners. And we know how important that this lifelong learning is, professionalism is, and that reflection now is becoming recognized as a major competency in many of our health and caring professions. So in light of our upcoming program review, I thought it would be helpful to illustrate how self-reflection skills are beneficial through a systems approach and how we are aligned with each level of operation. The next couple of slides do just that. So for the first time in history, the older adult population will be surpassing that of our younger adult population. So currently about 1 in 5 Londoners are seniors, and by 2037, older adult population will grow to 10.4 million. And this is actually a global phenomena, this aging demographic. So it couldn't be a better time for our learners to be entering the GIP program, right? Given that it's been identified that our older adults may be managing complex needs, and what's required then is a skill set that includes the expertise of an interprofessional team, right? Based on partnerships, collaborations, and within that team then, based on those collaborations and partnerships, come a unique set of 21st century skills, right? Communication, teamwork, critical thinking, they're all essential for our health service providers in the current health context. And as you can appreciate, reflection would also be a very integral part of these critical 21st century skills, right? Um, Reflection has actually been established in education, but it's much more recently supported in allied health and the science and medical education for sure. And at Fanshawe, the college has identified 7 job skills of the future. This is what they're calling them here. And they closely align to that what has been reported in the literature here, right? So if we take a look at them, the self-directed learning, our adaptive thinking, complex problem solving, being resilient, and then all of the reflection that would need to be associated when you're dealing with others in terms of your social intelligence, your global citizenship. It's many of these metacognitive skills would be based upon self-reflection. So at a systems level, our program aligns with 2 priority areas that have been identified by the Ministry of Colleges and University. One is community and economic impact, and the other is skills and job outcomes. So with this aging demographic and the requirement for this person-centered collaborative care, right? Our program provides timely solutions to a community need. And then the college itself has developed 13 essential employability skills in response to this need. So if we take a little bit of a deeper dive to that, let's just take a look here. That our essential employability skills, they've been developed by the college and they've been approved by the Credential Validation Service within the Ontario College Quality Assurance Service. And according to our college code book, EESs are critical to the success in any workplace or in just our day-to-day living and in our lifelong learning. These skills are thought to be transferable across any program or discipline within Fanshawe College. So not just our program, but across all, right? And if we take a look at these skills category with communication and critical thinking and information, interpersonal and personal, etc., I would say that our program satisfies all of these EES categories. Well, perhaps maybe numeracy notwithstanding, but we really emphasize obviously the communication, critical thinking, and these interpersonal and interprofessional skills. And again, self-reflection is a central underpinning for the development and execution of these skills. And we might even easily see how these kind of more complex skills might be further organized and align with the ICE learning framework, or ideas, connections, extension kind of learning framework. And interestingly, we'll see in the personal skills category, we've got something, that totally explicitly suggests that engaging in reflective practice is important. So thus far, we've shown alignment with community need and how the college has responded with a commitment to further develop those essential employability skills, or EESs. And now we need to ensure alignment at our program level, right? So what do our program level or vocational learning outcomes look like? And I would argue that our PVLOs actually reflect the college's EESs, really from a critical thinking and interpersonal and personal development perspective. But I encourage you just to pause here, perhaps just pause the video, and review these outcomes and just see what you think. Okay, if we even just look at the way that, the verbiage that has been used in how we have worded our outcomes here, things like apply and assess and analyze, right? We know that we are having to use and require a self-reflective stance in order to kind of meet these needs. And so, using a variety of thinking skills and from a variety of sources, and working within our interprofessional team. It also speaks to several of those aforementioned communication skills that were required to meet the complex needs of our older adult. And so, with that all to say, I would propose that maybe we consider an additional PVLO for our program, and that is engage in self-reflective practice towards personal and professional growth and development as a lifelong learner. So I can't wait to hear what you think about that. And with our upcoming program review, that will be a really great time to further discuss that perspective. But we also now want to use a systems approach to take a look at how reflection might be what we've seen, how it's important from community, from the college, and from the program perspective. So now how does this all align with your particular course? And this figure was taken right out of our college code book. And so what I'd like to do next is provide a little food for thought about how you might incorporate reflection or enhancing reflection in your practice. So what does the evidence say? Well, let's take a look next. So how might reflection actually look in practice? And so I've given a couple of examples here. So one of the studies that I looked at was this resilience program with physiotherapy students, and they used some coping strategies, whether it was mindfulness or self-talk, during stressful times in clinical placement. And I'm thinking, my goodness, that is super applicable for some of our students for sure. Any of us actually could, benefit from that. And the results show that students were a lot more confident. They had better self-perceptions. I remember reading things that the students were more concerned about kind of the process and becoming better clinicians, etc. And they also felt that they were more in control of their own learning, right? So, way back at the beginning, we talked about trying to enhance that professionalism, that development, that lifelong learner, right? There's another great example of some nursing students who used reflective journal writing to enhance self-awareness in their strengths, as well as maybe where there were some challenges. And they talked again about how they felt accountable for their own learning, that self-directed learning, that ability to self-regulate and drive their own learning. So pretty cool. And this last one was researchers aimed to investigate how some medical residents dealt with challenging conversations with families in a neonatal critical care unit, right? The emerging theme was that it included reflection on action, but also reflection in action. I thought this was so insightful that, the clinicians started to slow down right in the moment and think about the words they're using, the stance that they have, were they empathizing, etc., so that they could engage authentically in that moment. And I've included this final study about the medical students with the challenging conversations for a couple of reasons. One is that the research was actually done right here at home from London and collaboration with U of Toronto. And secondly, learning how to deal with challenging conversations or crucial conversations within, our context is not out of the ordinary, right? Our students, they might not be speaking to families in the NICU, but we are faced with equally sensitive issues such as end-of-life care or managing responsive behaviors in persons with dementia, requiring, many of these translatable skills. So I could see that being just so practical and applicable. In terms of, well, how are we going to do it? What are our tools? There's many things driven kind of from those studies that I presented there, either reflective journal writing, things called rich pictures. That last study with the medical students that was done here in London, it was this great technique of using what they termed rich pictures, symbols, metaphors, diagrams to illustrate those emotions and their thoughts of what the experience of that dialogue through those crucial conversations. And then I wanted to highlight this one too, because I could see us really running with something like this. So this was 136 undergraduate pharmacy students, and they participated in this really neat undertaking called Story Slam. They had a friendly competition about the pharmacy students that, just off the cuff kind of talked about their own experiences and so on. And they then, out of that 136, it's a small sample, but they took 11 participants and did some one-on-one interviews with them. The students really felt that the experience was positive, very meaningful, and that they would continue to use self-reflective practice to enhance their professionalism. And the last one that I thought that I would throw out here is this arts-informed curriculum, right? So expression of self-reflection through a variety of different mediums. And I wonder, not just the arts-informed curricula here, but if any of these things resonate with you, what have you tried? What might you like to try? I can't wait to have some further discussion with you about that. And so finally, what about video? So here's another tool to consider, video-assisted reflection. And I love this quote from Doms et al. That I've got here on the slide, who used video-assisted reflection in some medical students during their real-time clinical consultations. And they use this VAR as a means of formative assessment to enhance communication skills for those medical students. And they took a look at, what were the advantages? Well, they said it was very objective, of course. It allowed for a much more detailed analysis of one's behavior. And they talked about it being, a really great technique where it supported, a very busy in-action kind of situation with clinical consultations, right? That it provided this means of taking time for a second think on an otherwise very kind of chaotic environment, right? And overall, furthermore, I suppose, it's authentic, right? It's giving those students just a mind's eye view of what it is they did. Not somebody else telling them how they did or what it looked like, but they get to see it authentically for themselves. So that's pretty cool. Now, what else does the literature say? I'm going to encourage you to take your time reviewing the next 3 slides where I've provided a summary table of some recent literature that have used video-assisted reflection to help enhance reflection. So take a look. So overall in those studies, we could see that there was generally positive findings from the learners in terms of their thoughts and reflections, about video-assisted reflection. And we saw that it was over a variety of disciplines and a variety of settings as well. So that's, a definite positive. And I could see so many parallels to our particular students as well. Noted there are a couple of limitations. There were some small sample sizes and there wasn't much follow-up with regards to the students of then were they actually putting some of their areas to improve, putting that into action and being able to kind of follow up on that. And also that it all was usually self-assessment in terms of their improvement. But I mean, that's a bit of a double-edged sword as well. If we're talking about reflection, then self-assessment isn't a bad thing to be using as an outcome measure as well. So, oh, and the other consideration from one of the studies, and I think is just nice to have top of mind here, is that was it considered, some of the students felt like it was a stressful or almost a confronting kind of method or approach, right? So we would have to be very mindful of that and set the stage for people feeling comfortable and seeing it as a learning opportunity, etc., before participating in it. But why not, try this out in GIP? And I'm ready to share with you my pilot study. So I should probably just clear this up as well. I think in my previous slide I had talked about this being a pilot study. And as much as I maybe want it to be a pilot study, this is just a proof of concept project, right? So it is a pilot in my Health 6045 course. And so now if we get down to the granular level, the actual course level, I'm going to invite you to pause and peruse the course learning outcomes for this particular course. Again, we're focusing on developing critical thinking, right? Apply, analyze, utilize, etc. And communication skills in keeping with those program learning vocational outcomes and also our college EESs or employability, essential employability skills. And although reflection is not recognized directly in our program goals, remember that's something that I'm hoping that we can all discuss for our program review, it is highlighted here in this particular course. Of note is also this concept of developing professional and ethical behavior, right? And so towards assessment in the care of our older adults. So that's certainly requiring a self-reflective stance as well. So how is this all going to shake out? Well, we're going to be providing the opportunity. We've always actually provided the opportunity for reflection in this Health 6045 course. How are we going to achieve some of these course learning outcomes? One way is through problem-based learning, where the students are going to be provided with a case study, and then they apply those case study learnings, they prepare for it to a simulated clinical scenario with a live actor. And so students, they are put in pairs. They've got 15 minutes to demonstrate their geriatric knowledge and skills, and it might be elements such as person-centered care, active listening, motivational interviewing, selection and implementation of key assessment tools and questions, for example. So they're demonstrating those key outcomes that we're looking for. And I've got that all reflected in kind of a newly developed rubric. And so that's part of the website resources as well that I'm going to encourage you to take a peek at. And so they are having that 15 minutes in order to demonstrate all of these skills that we're looking for with their simulated patient. And following that clinical encounter, they then participate in a 10-minute debrief with the peers and the instructors. And we follow the R2C2 feedback model framework. And what that stands for is relationship building, right? The response to that feedback. Content specific, we're being very specific and actionable types of feedback to give to the students. And then the second C in this R2C2 feedback model is around the coaching, how we're providing that supportive feedback and making this much more of a dynamic dialogue, right? And so what is different, so this is how we've always done it, but what is different, what's making this pilot is the addition of the video assisted reflection, right? So we're actually going to be video recording the clinical scenario and having the students view that recording. And I've developed a self-reflection activity worksheet that provides some prompts and questions for them to complete and answer as they're viewing their video. But we're also going to be using something called Voicethread, and it's this innovative app that allows for dialogue between participants. So the student will be able to upload some comments directly on the video, and then I can come along and make some comments to their comments, for example, right? So we're able to post comments to each other, engage in a true dialogue about the experience. And then finally, the student will complete what I call is an action plan towards some improvement. So based on the feedback that they would have been given in their 10-minute debrief with their peers and the instructor, they're also going to be getting feedback in this interactive dialogue through, being captured by video thread, those annotations. But then probably even more importantly is this ability for them to self-reflect. And so I'm super excited to be piloting all of this. So besides the video that you're watching right now, I've also provided a few other resources that you'll find in this website. And one of them is a demonstration of the Voicethread technology. So go ahead and take a look at it. I think that you'll find it exciting, and you might be able to, adapt it to whatever you find within your courses as well. And I'm just learning how to use Voicethread myself, but they do offer some good e-learning workshops through our organizational and learning development services right at the college. So I encourage you to sign up for that. And I've also posted the reflection activity worksheet that I've referred to. So by all means, look at it, and the accompanying rubric. So I have, of course, had to update and improve my rubric. So if any of those resources would be helpful to you, definitely take them, adapt them for your use. So what does this video-assisted reflection allow us as educators to do? Well, it allows us to engage with our students in formative assessment, right? Guiding and supporting the development of reflective practice with an eye to further develop these skills, right? And so what I've got here is, what is our role in all of this? Well, we need to be continually asking ourselves and our students these questions that are posed by, I hope I get the name right, Riz Primo and Brokart's formative assessment framework. And we're continually asking ourselves and students, what are the next steps in learning with our students? I love how we say we. And how do we get there? So when we are trying to support that process of asking those questions and engaging with the students, when we're actively engaging in this dynamic process, we want to make sure that the dialogue that we have, that feedback that we have, that we're giving a very, it's very purposeful. We're giving specific, meaningful, and actionable feedback so that we can move towards that level of improvement. And for us as an educator, it gives us such a great opportunity to learn more about our students in a very individual way, as they so deserve, right? And this supports fairness in our approach to assessment. A little more about this concept of modeling the skill and the process, right? We as educators play such an important role in supporting toward improvement. And the scholar Brown suggests that with co-designing these learning plans that we do with that dialogical feedback process, much more enhancement is gained, right? So, and that doesn't matter whether it's student and educator or peer-to-peer. With this active engagement now, we are, people are buying in and being dedicated to that process. And so if we are there to model the skill, we're supporting not only self and co-regulation for the learner and between others, We're doing this so that they can become much more of an independent learner, right? We want them to be autonomous towards self-directed and independent learning. And ultimately, with that goal of helping support one to become a lifelong learner. And if we remember back to the beginning of this whole talk, we spoke about how important and crucial lifelong learning is in the context of becoming a professional in the health and caring professions. If we're able to do that and support that and model that, then we've really done our job well. And so one other kind of aspect to think about is for ourselves, right? One more thing about this notion of modeling our feedback process and modeling this underpinning growth mindset. Not only did we see that reflection was an essential employability skill, remember those EESs for our students, well, it's true for us too. So as noted in our code book, we see that there's 4 overarching core competencies that we as faculty are responsible for. And right, in the thick of it all is this professional development. It's a accountability for us as educators at Fanshawe. And so now I actually challenge you to think about your own next steps. And now this leads us to perhaps our own thoughts of reflection. The first that I'm going to share with you is a study out of Switzerland where the researchers took a look at a really large sample, 247 fourth-year medical students, and they wanted to get their reactions to an implementation study, much like what I described actually in the Health 6045. So they had the students look at their own videos and annotations for those videos, peer review, and a physician-led discussion. And in general, following a post questionnaire, all of the students felt that viewing their own video was helpful. But interestingly, almost all of the students thought that it was even more valuable taking a look at a peer's video and providing annotations there. So I thought, maybe that is food for thought for next steps in this current pilot. Another consideration is the Lewis et al. Study. I introduced that a little bit earlier on the table. And it's the study that looked at speech-language pathology students in their live clinical interactions with their clients. And actually, this was a recurrent theme in some of the literature that I reviewed for sure, that the medical students or interprofessional practitioners or to be were working live, right? So I think it's something to consider for field placement for our students as well. And I'm super intrigued by this whole concept of arts-informed curricula, right? Allowing for just different ways for our students to engage in self-reflection through, various mediums. So it would be really neat. Can't wait to have further discussion with you all around this. And by us offering different ways, not just this video-assisted recording, I'm pumped for that, but offering different ways, we're also speaking to kind of fairness in our approach to assessment by, offering a variety of different ways that they can be self-reflective in their process. And then finally, I found a couple of really cool studies that provides a little interesting twist, and that is encouraging that the educators themselves, that we would actually record ourselves in action and, participate in the peer review, all of the things that I've kind of outlined here in this current proof of concept project could probably really apply to us as well. And I can't think of a better way to be more authentic in modeling this whole process. And so this brings us to a close for this particular professional learning opportunity. Hopefully it's been helpful for you and provided some inspiration for further self-reflection. Feel free to use any of the resources that I've also posted on the website, and a list of references that helped to inform this whole video are coming up next, and I certainly look forward to this learning journey with you and further discussions. So see you soon.